Welcome to this video on making your data actionable. My name is Andrew Means, and I'm the founder of Good Tech Fest and have been a leader in the Data for Good space for more than 10 years. I'm glad to be producing these videos in partnership with data.org and their resource library, a place for social good organizations seeking to make better use of data to further their missions. I think this is important because many organizations don't lack data. They lack insight from that data. They lack value from that data. One of the ways I like to think about this reminds me of a quote from Michelangelo. He said that inside every block of stone was a statue, and it was the job of the sculptor to uncover it. Data is that raw resource. It's that marble. Simply having it doesn't make it valuable. A bunch of ones and zeros on a server somewhere isn't inherently valuable. It becomes valuable when we bring our ingenuity, our creativity, our tools, and our methods to it, to that raw resource, and turn it into something valuable for our organizations. That process of turning the raw resource of data into something valuable for your organization is what we are talking about today. The first steps towards making your data actionable and valuable for your organization is to look at your organizational culture. Far too many nonprofits that I've seen and social impact organizations I've worked with have made the mistake of investing in tools and technologies and data analysts without ever first taking a look at whether they as an organization actually value data to begin with. One of my favorite people when it comes to this topic is Kelly Fitzsimmons, the founder and executive director of Project FM. So I sat down with her to better understand how she sees the importance of culture in becoming a data-driven organization. So this video that I'm doing is all about making data actionable. And one of the things that I think is so important and so crucial in helping organizations make data actionable is to have a culture of evidence and have a culture that values information. What are some of the ways that you see the role of culture playing in creating a data-driven organization?
Yeah, that is a great question, and it's a great insight, and fantastic you guys are focusing in this zone. In many ways, it's the number one thing. It's a critical success factor. It can be the largest barrier. So if a culture of learning isn't instilled in a team, regardless of role, you won't find champions and users aligned in the need, the purpose, for the work in the first place. You'll have organ rejection. You'll have debates about what questions are supposed to be answered. You'll have, some institutional blockages along the way, and can tend to lose the importance of centering on the needs of those that you're serving, whether they're students, program participants. So inculcating that culture, making it a good place for raising questions, answering questions, the importance of hypothesis testing, the importance of adjusting when you get things wrong and want to work on, precisely improving, and innovating and trying new pieces. So all of those are really important with regard to not just empowering people, along the chain, no matter where they sit in the given organization, but actually, instilling those feedback loops, making sure the stuff is showing up in budgets, making sure the stuff is showing up in performance reviews and professional development in training, so that it's a real competence that an organization is aligning itself around and rewarding everybody there who's participating.
Investments in culture often reap tremendous value for organizations. Developing practices that help people see the value of data-informed decision-making is absolutely critical. If you feel that your organization isn't yet getting value from data, or really a data-driven organization, the first place to look is at your organizational culture. You need to ask yourself whether you value the information that you already have when making decisions. Do people have an incentive to use data? Is there a cultural value of using data in your decision-making? Addressing those cultural challenges is a necessary precursor to creating more value from your data. The next step towards becoming a data-driven organization is to ensure that the data that you do have is actually accessible to all relevant stakeholders. Accessibility is about more than the data being technically available inside some sort of CRM or spreadsheet, but it's about whether that data is consumable and usable by your stakeholders. Simply having a bunch of data in a CRM or a data warehouse doesn't make it valuable. It's about whether people are actually able to ingest and utilize that information in their everyday jobs. One of the best ways that I found to make data actually accessible is through data visualization and exploration tools like Tableau. So I sat down with Neal Myrick, Vice President of Social Impact at Tableau and the global head of the Tableau Foundation, to learn more about how he sees organizations using tools like Tableau to make their data more actionable. What are some ways that you've seen organizations really open up their data and make it accessible and valuable to everyone across the organization?
Organizations that we've supported that have been really successful about building a culture of data have started with really a concept around democratizing data. So they make data available internally. They democratize it, meaning that people can get access to as much data, as is sort of appropriate. And they also democratize it for stakeholders outside of their organization. So enabling access to data without having to go through gatekeepers is really one of the key strategies to enabling an organization to use data better. So I remember working with the World Food Program, the Mobile Vulnerability Analysis and Monitoring Unit. They had actually created this technique of using text to collect data from people in the field, and especially in locations where they couldn't send staff to collect data. What they had to do is they realized that building a data culture is really a people change management exercise. So when they built their first dashboard actually looked and felt like the PDF that their end users were used to getting. And that was sort of an easing them into the interactivity of the dashboard. And then over time, they were able to build more and more interactivity in and help sort of lead people off what they were used to, which was the PDF, into a more interactive dashboard.
So you've worked on developing a culture that values evidence, and you've put into place the tools and technologies to make data actually accessible by all its stakeholders. So what's next? There are so many different ways that data can change the way that you work. It can help you better target your fundraising. It can help you identify which people are at risk of dropping out of your programs. It can provide greater evidence of the impact that you're having to your funders. You can really apply data in so many different ways around your organization. But there is one practice that I often find really valuable no matter where you're looking to apply data. And that practice is continuous improvement. The idea is quite simple. You just continually collect data and information and use it to identify ways to improve your work. Project Evident has been a leader in helping nonprofit organizations develop and implement continuous improvement practices. So let's return to my conversation with Kelly and learn a little bit more about how she's helping organizations engage in continuous improvement. How does Project Evident think about continuous improvement within the context of a nonprofit and its mission?
I think continuous improvement, regardless if you call it a PDSA cycle, regardless if you call it test and learn, like there's lots of different labels, but the core notion of constantly spot checking, using data and evidence, asking those questions, leaning into the discomfort of, are we doing the right thing by the people we serve? How do we know? What can we do better? That is absolutely essential, particularly we're dealing with human beings and context changes. We have to adapt. It can be exhausting. So when you pair continuous improvement in a culture of learning and you're supporting one another, I think, again, with those dedicated mechanisms, culture becomes an enabling context for a continuous improvement methodology, which, again, whichever one you pick, to enable that improvement and innovation over time. Yesterday's evidence building, use of data was largely thumbs up, thumbs down, and done to us, to many nonprofits, by funders, by policymakers. Today, and what we'd say is the next generation of evidence and data users, throw out the thumbs up, thumbs down, and bring in the fist bump. What are we doing together to make things better for those we're serving and who we're, what our missions are all about in the first place? And that is not possible if we're not able to access that data in an intentional process in a culture that rewards and needs and wants to learn in service of those we're serving.
So that's it, right? You develop a culture where evidence is valued, you put in place tools and technologies that make your data truly accessible, and you take a continuous improvement approach to this work. I guarantee you that if you start down that path, your data will become much more actionable and much more valuable for your organization. To see what this looks like in practice, I sat down with Nelly Ramírez Moncada, Vice President of Advanced Digital Services at Fundación, to learn more about how they are creating a data-driven culture and making the most of the data that they have. Could you share a little bit about what Fundación Capital is doing around the use of data in its work?
Yes. So in Fundación Capital, we work to promote economic citizenship globally at scale with technology. And we've always had some sort of approach with data. It's a much more comprehensive approach now. And we've always had culturally very much embedded this idea that we need to improve and improve and improve and improve our initiatives and interventions. And easily on, we discovered that the best way to iterate based on the user's needs and the user's context is learning from the users. 2 years ago, we applied for the data.org challenge, and we were awarded with one of our initiatives in Mozambique to harness the power of data and create a business analytics to provide insights to workers so they could increase their income and also to make them be more impactful in their work based on the insights that they can get from their own data. So this is a little bit about the ethics of bringing the power of the data back to the users who give it to you.
One of the things that we're talking about in this guide and through this video is around opening up your data, making it accessible to all relevant stakeholders. And I love this idea of, giving data back to your users. Could you talk to us a little bit more about what that looks like in this particular initiative?
I think that sharing the data and opening the data is always a good idea, but it must be done in a way that you guarantees the user's privacy and security, and that you have an ethics, an ethic component in the management of that data.
One of the other things that I'm hearing you talk about is around using data to drive continuous improvement. Could you talk a little bit about how you've built that into the culture at Fundación Capital to use data not just to retroactively look back at what you've done, but to use it for continuous learning by people throughout the organization?
Yes, we have really, the way we did this was with small success stories. So in the midst of the pandemic, we deployed our virtual assistant Connector. And the Connector, once it was deployed in Latin America in 2020, we started, trying to convey people with safe information, curated information from the OMS, from their governments on what was going on, and what was actually true news or actual news, not false news, or not fake news. And so the people, once after 3 months, they started saying, hey, you know what, I kind of had it with washing your hands information, and I kind of want to know what to do with my kids at home all day. I kind of want to know how to digitize my small shop, and so this success story where we were able to show, hey, this is what the dashboard is saying, this is the time the users connect, people are very busy, but they have a time slot here where they're open to listen to this kind of content, this is the content that people like storytelling, these are the characters that they feel more attached with, this is the kind of things that they're struggling with. And so everyone in the organization, just from that small experience, started kind of interiorizing the power of iterating in favor of the user, because we were getting all this user feedback. So everyone felt motivated of being able to change and iterate based on the users.
Yeah, I just love when organizations are using data for that kind of continuous improvement, driving better programming, all of those kind of things. To learn more and get connected to supportive resources on this topic and many more, definitely go check out data.org's resource library. In particular, check out the associated guide to this video, Making Your Data Actionable. I've linked to resources from Tableau, Project Evident, and many others that can hopefully help support you on your journey to making the most of your data. Thanks so much for joining me.